Hi everyone, welcome to another video of the Orchid Shelf. It's another beautiful spring day here in southern Italy, Naples, and I just had to share with you these gorgeous blooms of my two Phalaenopsis equestris plants. Phalaenopsis equestris is a plant that comes from southern Taiwan and the Philippines, and it grows at very hot environments near rivers, according to orchidspecies.com, at up to, at altitudes up to 300 meters, where it's still very, very warm. Let's talk about the plant in the front, actually, first. This is my Phalaenopsis equestris B100, and as you can see, it's quite a small plant, and I don't believe it will get that big. It has got these beautiful leaves which are a bit more rounded, and it's the first time it's blooming for me, and it produced these two very lush and very big flower spikes in comparison to its size. The blooms are absolutely stunning. I mean, if you look at the color, it's a beautiful purple color with this yellow spot in the middle and the white, I forgot what you call this part of the flower actually, but you can just see what a gorgeous combination of colors this is. The flower spike will take quite a while to develop, not as slow as Phalaenopsis schilleriana, but it will grow quite long and then it will branch off, and flowers typically open sequentially. It takes such a long time for all the flowers to open that, by the time you've got the flowers open over here, the flowers that opened in the beginning will have faded, like it is the case over here, or over here where you see all these empty nodes. Nevertheless, it gives you a beautiful show of blooms, and it seems to be, continuously blooming as well. So I expect even more flowers after this if I keep it happy enough. And it's been a very, very rewarding plant to keep in my collection. It's got very thick and sturdy roots. It's now time for me to water it again. As you see, I keep it on this mound of sphagnum moss, which is absolutely not intentional. What happened was that I planted it into a mix of bark and bits of pumice and ceramis, and I like not having sphagnum moss inside the pot, because in that way I can just keep it in the pot a bit longer and I don't have to repot it as soon as the sphagnum moss breaks down, which happens much faster than with that kind of material that I have. But then it just kept falling out of the pot, and because I was stupid and I just kept knocking it over, so instead of having to fiddle it back in, I just decided to put it onto a mound of sphagnum moss, and it's been actually growing quite happily. Yes, let's have a look at the other plant, which is my Phalaenopsis equestris Mauve. Sorry, the light is a bit strong, so let me show you the real color. So this is more the color that you actually see on this plant, a beautiful, delicate mauve pink color. It has a much, much more delicate character to it than the B100, but it's equally stunning and beautiful. And the blooming is, much more pronouncedly sequential, as you can see. And the flower stalks are very, very long, so I recommend, leaving quite a bit of space for these blooms to be able to open. For example, you see how long this spike is on the right. And I didn't present it nicely enough. Maybe I should just stake it up so that actually, it's a bit nicer to look at. It's also a very vigorous plant. Do you see all these happy root tips? It's once again smiling at me with all these green root tips, which make me so incredibly happy. I keep it fairly moist, which I will tell you a bit later. And what I wanted to tell you before that is that Phalaenopsis equestris is famous for producing a lot of keikis, a lot of baby plantlets. And I've never seen this with any other orchid before, but this time it produced a keiki just off the stem, which I was very surprised about. So now it looks like a bit, I've got like a double plant, and I like this shape so much that I just decided to keep the keiki on the plant, and it's been sharing the energy with its mother plant very happily, and both the mother plant and the keiki have been growing very vigorously and very happily. So that's why you see 3 flower spikes, because usually a Phalaenopsis equestris would produce 2 flower spikes, one on each side of the plant. But yeah, I've been very happy with this development. You can see that it's actually quite an old plant, because do you see how it's actually higher up? And at all of these points in the past you had leaves, and they just fell off after a while, and now these remain. These are the youngest parts, but I don't actually mind, because whereas with Phalaenopsis schilleriana the roots can go off miles and miles away from the pot, these ones quite instinctively seem to be looking for a lot of moisture, so most of them just point down, and then they will eventually grow into the substrate. Let me see what kind of substrate I use. Yeah, so the substrate here is a bit more different. Here I use pieces of bark, a bit of sphagnum moss inside, and ceramis, but also tons of perlite. With plants that like to stay moist but airy, I love using a lot of perlite, because perlite absorbs an incredible amount of moisture, but keeps the substrate quite airy. So I really like this fact about it. And in that way I can actually reduce the amounts of sphagnum moss, and then I can keep the plant in the substrate a bit longer. When it comes to the watering routine, I just water it together with all of my other plants. This one, because it's in a smaller pot, I have to water a bit more often. So these days I water it around 2 times a week, but in summer it's absolutely no problem if you just water it every day when it's really, really hot and the plant is surrounded by a lot of air movement. I have an air purifier in front of the orchid shelf, which constantly sends out fresh air and circulates the air around the plants. So that's very important if you want to keep your plants very moist. And in summer, I like putting all of my plants onto the balcony with a 50% shade cloth, which actually is quite intense for Phalaenopsis. And each plant has been adapting differently to these highlight levels. So here you can see these yellowish spots which come from the highlight from last year. So it didn't get any burns from it, but I think it's a bit too high of light, but it seems to be fine. This leaf has been growing, and yeah. With this B100 variety, the leaves are quite succulent, whereas with this one, the leaves are much pointier and much thinner, but also this plant is really, really tough. You can see the reddening here because I've been keeping it under strong artificial light, but also on the balcony in summer, the light will get quite strong. But it seems to be doing fine, as long as I don't see sunburn, and the plant keeps growing fresh roots and leaves and flowers well. I think there is nothing wrong with it. As with all of my other plants, I keep a regimen of MSU, well water fertilizer, combined with algae extract. And I've been lowering the pH value. I'm sorry, I keep wanting to say PhD. I just don't know why. Yeah, I keep lowering the pH value using citric acid, and that has been helping the plant in nutrient uptake a bit more, I believe. And so far, they've been very happy about it. Yeah, so that's it. Considering my Phalaenopsis equestris plant, don't keep it in too low temperatures. If you keep it in a room like mine where I don't have any heating, poor insulation, then in fall, so in autumn and in winter, the temperatures will naturally get so low that the plant is encouraged to produce flower spikes, and in summer it will get very hot inside and outside, and as long as you water the plants well, that will be fine. In winter, I wouldn't be too worried about keeping the plants too moist, even in winter, because in my experience, as long as you keep the substrate airy but moisture retentive, using perlite and pumice, for example, that will be enough for the plant, and it stays happily in a very moist environment. So I never actually let it go dry, anywhere near dry, really. So for example, this one is actually a bit too dry, so I've been a bit lazy this time. But you can also just keep it permanently moist, and the plant actually likes it. That's quite different from my Phalaenopsis schilleriana. But yeah, with these ones, they've been enjoying that a lot. So yeah, these are my Phalaenopsis equestris. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave a comment. And otherwise, thumbs up if you like the video, and feel free to subscribe. And I'm hoping to show you many more of my blooming orchids in the future. So thank you very much, and happy orchid growing. Bye.